Hey, welcome back everyone. In this one, I'm going to be showing you how to export Django to other file types. So for example, we'll be able to see how we can export this table data to CSV, to Excel, and to PDF. So to show you how it's going to work, we are going to create an option where a user can click here, and then when they click, they can get a file downloaded on their system. And once they open the file, it should be able to show that data in a CSV format. Alright, good. So another thing, we are going to see how to export to Excel so that we can get a spreadsheet that we can use to manipulate and make calculations and all that stuff. So they will do that by also clicking this option. So when we download that, you can see that we have a file. It's postfixed with the .xls format. So that basically means that it's an Excel spreadsheet file. And yeah, so if I open it, you can see that it opens up, and I don't have an appropriate viewer, but if you had a viewer, for example, like a Google spreadsheet, so I'm going to open this in a spreadsheet. So I'm going to minimize this, and then I want to drag and drop the file. So I'll drop the file here. So it's going to go ahead and start uploading the file. So once it's done, you can see that this is done. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the spreadsheet. Okay, so once it's done, you can see that we have our file here. So we have all the file contents. Another thing, we'll be able to export to PDF. So user is going to be able to click export to PDF. And what that will do is it's going to go ahead and bring up a PDF viewer. And then it's going to construct a PDF like this one. So for example, here you can see that we basically can see all our expense lists. We'll be able to add like page headers on the PDFs. We'll be able to add page footers. We'll add pagination for PDFs that have many pages. So it's going to be interesting. So if you like this kind of content, I highly recommend you subscribe to the channel as we keep learning more cool stuff. So let's go ahead and start by adding a feature to export to CSV. Alright, so let's start by adding a button where a user can click and they export this data to CSV. So if we go to our templates, to expenses, then to index, so basically where we have the search, so you can see that the search is in a row. So the row has 8 columns that are not doing anything. So here I'm basically going to have a link that will go to a route where we'll be downloading the CSV file from. So I'm going to set up a link here. So we're going to create a URL for this and a view. So basically it's going to be, we are going to use the URL utility. Then it's going to be called export CSV. All right, so once we have that, now we need to basically close this one out and then add something like export CSV. So since we are using Bootstrap, I'm going to add a simple class here. So this is going to be btn secondary, just so it looks a little bit better. So once we have this, we need to create a view in our views.py. So we go to expenses views.py, which is here. So down here, I'm going to create a view. So def, it's going to be called export CSV. So it's going to be an underscore to take in a request. So we are going to be using the Python CSV module. So let's first import that. So import CSV. All right. So once we import that, we need to create a response that we need to send to a user. So normally we would send like an HTML document, but now we basically want to construct a CSV file and then send that one to the browser again. So one of the first things we're going to do is create a response. So we are going to now be using an HTTP response class. So let's import it. So from Django.http import JSON response. So I'm also going to import HTTP response. Okay, so once we import HTTP response, here we're going to construct HTTP response, and then we basically want to set a content type. So set content type should be content underscore type. So this is going to be equal to text slash CSV. So once we have this, then we basically want to also add some other metadata information to our response. So the next thing you're going to need to do, so we're going to set response, we're going to set content disposition. So this is going to be equal to attachment, and then we can specify a file name. So I'm going to say file name equals expenses. So I'm also going to actually concatenate there the current date, just so a user gets a different file each time they download. So I'm gonna use datetime.now, and then I'm gonna concatenate there .csv. Alright, so this is gonna need to be a string. So let's also concatenate this. Alright, so that's gonna construct our file name. So once we have that one set, then the next thing you're going to need to do is use the CSV writer to actually construct what we need to send in the response. So right now, I'm going to get access to the writer. So this we do CSV.writer. So I'm going to pass the response there. So once we do that, then the next thing you're going to need to do is write a row. So we use writer, then we call write row. So right here, we need basically to pass a row with a list of basically what would be the contents of that row. So here, this, you can think of this as what will be like the header, because now we are describing this one like ourselves. So this one is gonna now take in the amount, because we want to show like a header for the amount. Then we are going to also show the description. Then the next thing we'll show basically will be the category. Then the next thing we'll show will be the date. Okay, so this will set up one row. So the next thing we need to do is to append some dynamic rows, which will be our expenses from the DB. So here I'm going to set up a variable called expenses. So I'm going to query the expense model. So it's going to be expense.objects.filter. So we're going to get the current user's expenses. So that we do with owner equals request.user. Okay, so the current logged in user, we get the access to the objects created by them. So once we have that, we need to loop through these expenses and also append them to our response. So what we do, we can use a for loop. So for expense in expenses. Alright, so what we want to do is basically write rows for as many expense that we have. So we are going to use write row. So the row we are going to be writing now, so we basically want to write expense.amount. Another thing will be expense. Why do I keep getting to excess? Expense.description. Another thing will be expense.category. Then the date. Okay, so once we have this, now we have constructed what would be like our header. Then we have added some more dynamic information. Now we need to return this response from the view. So we can do return response. Alright, so once we have this, we need to set up a URL for this. So I'm going to go to the urls.py file. Then I'm going to copy this. Then I'll use that as a starter. Then now, so the view is basically called, I'm going to create a path to go to export CSV. And then the view will be views.export.csv. Then I'm going to give it the same name here. So the name we use here, we basically want to make sure that it is the same name that we have in our route. So here in index.html, we make sure it's the same. Alright, so once we have this, now let's go ahead and test it out. So I'm going to go to the browser now. And now you can see that we have an export CSV link. So once I click it, oh, so we have an issue here. So it can't concatenate strings to datetime objects. So I'm going to come over here in a views.py. So this one, and cast this one to a string and wrap it into a string. So that will turn it into a string, and then come and reload. Alright, so let me retry it. So come over here. So once we click export, you can see that it creates a CSV file. So once I click on it, you can see that it opens up with our CSV information. So this is good. So in the next video, we are going to go ahead and add ability to export this data to Excel. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.